One of our friends, I think he lives in New York. He's a therapist, okay? And he's asking if I would say something that might be helpful about the likely overturn of the abortion law and how to navigate this all worked up nation and world. And so he says, from his viewpoint, compassion is the antidote. And I completely agree with that. Um, whatever side people are on, their basic motivation is they want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. So if we can tune into that basic wish, you know, and ignore for the time being all the verbiage and name calling and hostility and animosity, and just tune in to what's really going on in people's hearts. I want happiness, I don't want suffering. And everybody has a different vision of happiness, a different way of thinking about the causes of that happiness, a different idea of what suffering is and what the causes of suffering are. And so we get, linked into our thoughts, and regardless of whether our thoughts are right or wrong, when we're attached to them because they're my thoughts and my way of thinking, then, anger, upset, name calling, hostility, and so on easily follow from that. Okay? So if we can see that mechanism and have compassion for the people who don't see that mechanism and think that the cause of their misery is what other people are saying and doing, and then blaming them and so on, that kind of compassion is quite good. It doesn't mean we stay silent and we just let everybody act out their anger and be crazy. We do what we can to help them, remain, not remain because they aren't there yet, but to get calmer and more open-minded. At the same time, knowing that we can't control other people. And when people get very worked up, their minds are not very open. And that includes us. When we get very worked up, our minds aren't very open. So in this kind of thing, we have to protect our own minds and make sure that we don't get all worked up about all of this happening. Okay. Having ideas, wanting to see some things happen and other things not happen, that's fine, and we have to have those ideas. And as Buddhists, we want to put forth ideas that have to do with ethical conduct and compassion. But I really want to stress the problem is when we get attached to our ideas because they're ours. Okay. So he made an interesting comment. Civil discourse seems to be a thing of the media museum history. Yeah. Everybody now seems ready to fight. And then, this isn't limited to the US. It's going on all over the place. And fighting is not the right path, yet people are always ready to fight. Isn't that interesting? Fighting gives us purpose. I'm against something, so my life is meaningful, and I'm going to get all worked up and be against something and stop this horrible thing. Yeah. And so it gives us very much a feeling of being alive and having purpose. But it's really a very false sense of purpose because we're not thinking very clearly. Okay. And he's also saying what he thinks is important is deep listening. Can we learn to listen to the vulnerabilities and fears of others? Yeah, to really listen, without interrupting, without saying, you're wrong, and you shouldn't feel that way. And then he said something quite interesting. Okay, so he said, I'm in a privileged position to work with people of all political backgrounds and beliefs. He's a therapist, yeah. I've worked with perpetrators, victims, and bystanders. These groups include military members, elite academics who are highly preoccupied with gender pronouns, refugees fleeing the very wars the military often exacerbates, immigrant agricultural workers, and white working class individuals who feel betrayed by the gender pronoun-focused elites. In listening to so many disparate groups, I get to touch their common humanity and hearts, see beyond their fear and rage, even though some of their views are different than mine. This is a blessing. I belong to no group, which is both lonely and liberating. Yeah, you don't need to have an identity in the mess. Okay, moving in between these worlds allows for spaciousness, which increases the capacity for empathy and expands the heart. So there is a strange freedom in this. Yeah, it's actually quite an understandable freedom. Yeah, when we drop the things that we're attached to and just open our mind to the feelings and situations of other people, and have an attitude of kindness and compassion towards them. He said, I personally find Venerable Chödrön's insights incredibly calming. In my life, she has become the voice of reason, which always eases my anxiety and confusion and has, So he was asking what my ideas are on this. So now you're going to hear my ideas. I mean, I completely agree with what he said, but I want to add two other things. One is, I think it would really help all of us to lighten up a little bit and not take everything so seriously and make everything like the end of the world scenario. And I think also if we develop more generous hearts and, had a generosity of heart that is displayed, even by giving people physical things, material things, because that can often bridge and reconnect people. If you aren't getting along with someone and you give them a present, they stop and they go, oh, that person, they care about me in some way, that they're giving me something. Okay, so that is leading into Buddha Bear's Dharma teaching